All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping straight into the epic, crazy underdog journey of a guy named Rick Gladiator. Now picture this. You've got a guy who by all normal standards seems entirely past his prime. He's 30 years old, he just quit his completely stable desk job, and he decides, you know what? I want to start from the absolute bottom as an adventurer. But here's the secret. He isn't just some washed-up old rookie. He is a walking natural disaster, literally masquerading as an ordinary guy.
So to really understand this absolute unit of a rookie, we have to ask one terrifying question. What exactly happens when a 30-year-old desk clerk gets subjected to 2 years of the most hellish, brutal training imaginable, alongside the continent's absolute most terrifying monsters? Well, you get a cinematic, ridiculously high-stakes underdog story that completely shatters the conventional rules of power and talent.
14 years. Think about that for a second. That is exactly how long Rick spent literally rotting away at a guild receptionist's desk. Ever since he was a kid, he had this dream of being a legendary hero like Yamato, taking down the ultimate monster known as the Kaiser. But instead of out there adventuring, he was, stamping paperwork and organizing quests for other people. It's a brutal piece of irony. He spent the physical prime of his life watching other people live out his dream before he finally took the plunge.
And here's where it gets absolutely hilarious. When Rick finally takes the beginner adventurer exam, his stats are totally broken, but in the weirdest way possible. His magical capacity registers at an F rank. I mean, it is utterly pathetic. The guy can barely muster a spark compared to the flashy young prodigies. But his physical strength? Oh, it's completely off the charts at an S rank level. And he didn't get this through some lucky magical blessing or a system cheat code. No way. He built this mind-blowing power through sheer bloody, unimaginable effort.
Okay, so how on earth did he get that strong? Enter his mentors, the Orichalcum Fist. They're the most legendary adventuring party on the continent. Just listen to this absolute powerhouse lineup. We've got Rionette, an S-ranked maid who mastered bodily control. Brufston, a beastly intellectual orc who's a master of physical strength. Missit Ilir, a 50-year-old half-elf who fights with what is essentially a machine gun. And Alicia Pastoria, an 11-year-old apocalyptic vampire prodigy. These monsters literally killed and resurrected poor Rick thousands of times over 2 years just to force his body to break its natural limits.
Now, obviously, this unbelievable power didn't just happen overnight. We know he started with that childhood dream and then spent 14 years stuck behind a desk. But the real turning point, the catalyst, happened when a massive dragon suddenly attacked his city. While everyone else was running in pure terror, including seasoned adventurers, by the way, Rick, the lowly desk clerk, stood his ground to protect S-rank adventurer Rionette. That one insane, suicidal moment of courage awakened his hidden potential, caught the eye of the Orichalcum Fist, and launched him directly into those 2 years of hellish resurrection training.
Part 1, the overpowered old rookie.
This is the moment where Rick's absurd power crashes headfirst into the arrogance of the kingdom's elite teenage nobles during the E-rank adventurer exam. You've got these prodigies strutting around, looking at Rick like he's just some washed-up old man. During the physical testing phase, they're told to strike a golden slime bag. The instructor is bragging, right? Saying this thing is durable enough to withstand a dragon's tooth. The noble kids hit it, they do all right. Then Rick steps up. Remembering his master's casual command to break 200 of these things a day, Rick clenches his fist, throws a punch, and utterly vaporizes it. The shock on the exam crowd's faces is absolutely priceless. The F-ranked nobody just totally stole the spotlight. The real culmination of the exam, though, pits Rick against Rastin. He's this highly arrogant A-rank noble examiner who completely despises Rick. Rastin unleashes an incredibly rare, devastating 8th-tier elemental magic spell, fully expecting to just obliterate the old rookie. And what does Rick do? He counters with a basic 1st-tier air shot. But here is the catch. Rick has practiced that basic spell over 100 million times. The sheer refined perfection of his basic attack completely shatters Rastin's elite magic in a matter of seconds, utterly humiliating the examiner. It's so hype.
Part 2, the Fist King Tournament. Having secured his adventurous license, the narrative shifts gears and we head to the desert nation of Urtopia. Here, Rick's team enters a brutal Colosseum tournament to claim an ancient gem called the Gold of the Sovereign. But before we dive into the fights, we really need to understand the scaling system of this world. It's called the 4 fundamental faculties. They are physical strength, bodily control, magical reserve, and magical control.
Now Rick's magical reserve? Yeah, it's rock bottom. He simply started too late in life to build it up. But because of his torturous training, his physical strength and bodily control are scaled so ridiculously high that he effectively fights like a god-tier S-rank adventurer, easily outpacing almost everyone in that coliseum.
This whole tournament perfectly sets up a massive thematic clash: hard work versus natural talent. On one side, we have Angelica. She's a noble girl who literally submits to Rick's hellish training regimen for an entire month just to master a complex aura technique called the cutting cut. She is desperately fighting to annul a forced marriage and save her family. And on the exact opposite side, we have Geese. He's a draconian fighter who relies purely on his innate, raw ancestral physicality. Geese doesn't train at all. He just fights out of sheer arrogance, laziness, and absolute boredom.
When Angelica faces Geese, despite her incredible new skills, Geese's natural durability is just too much. He brutally beats her down without an ounce of effort. And this perfectly sets the stage for Rick stepping into the semifinals to face Geese and avenge his student. Rick knows Geese has never had to actually try a single day in his life, and he delivers this absolute hype quote: "The truly strong continue even if no strength remains." Rick is about to show him what real exhaustion looks like.
And Rick doesn't just beat Geese, he teaches him a terrifying lesson. To prove a point, Rick intentionally limits his own physical strength to match Angelica's exact level. Instead of using brute force, he uses an internal body control technique, completely bypassing Geese's impenetrable dragon skin and damaging him from the inside out. When Geese starts running out of breath, because, he's never actually built any stamina, Rick finishes this satisfying, incredibly cathartic beatdown with a devastating burst dash. Relentless hard work officially eclipses lazy natural talent.
Part 3, the Master and Student Clash.
With Geese defeated, we build massive momentum toward the earth-shattering tournament finals. It's Rick against his undefeated master, Brufston. The master and the student finally crossing fists. But the absolutely crucial point here is understanding why this fight is even happening. Decades ago, Brufston was born a total genius among orcs. He learned to read, he mastered magic, but it completely isolated him. He was so overwhelmingly powerful that he couldn't connect with his own people through combat, which is the traditional orc way. His deepest, most guarded dream was simply to find someone, anyone, who could fight him on equal terms. He literally trained Rick for 2 years just to sculpt a worthy opponent.
And a worthy opponent is exactly what he gets. Guys, this fight is visually insane. The Colosseum literally crumbles around them as these two S-rank level monsters just trade god-tier blows. Brufston is unleashing massive elemental shockwaves, and Rick is barely surviving by utilizing instant, chantless, air crucifixion spells, a technique that takes flawless split-second precision. They are pushing each other to the absolute edge of human and monster endurance.
Brufston eventually pushes Rick so far that Rick's body just starts giving out. But Rick realizes how much his master sacrificed for him, and he flat out refuses to fall. This pure, unyielding willpower triggers Rick's ultimate trump card, Reckless Soul. It is an innate, uncontrollable ability that only activates when the user possesses the burning desire to surpass their limits against an overwhelmingly stronger foe. With Reckless Soul activated, Rick finally steps onto perfectly equal footing with his master. Now, the climax of the fight doesn't end with some massive magic spell or a flashy sword strike. No, it ends with a colossal, explosive headbutt between the two warriors. The impact is so massive, it leaves both men laid out flat on the crumbled arena floor. The tournament officially ends in a draw. Brufston gets exactly what he dreamed of, a true peer, and he happily hands over the Sovereign Gem. Rick proves without a shadow of a doubt that he truly belongs among the strongest fighters in the world. Part 4. Dreams are never too late.
So, after surviving this insane tournament, how does the team celebrate? With a hilarious 2,800-kilometer foot race back home. The prize? A trip to the hot springs with Rionette. Rick takes off sprinting across the entire continent, proving his ridiculous stamina and showing us that his grand adventure is really just beginning. Which brings us to our final thought. If a 30-year-old desk clerk who spent 14 years doing paperwork can undergo the torment of a lifetime, punch out a dragon, and stand toe-to-toe with an S-rank monster through nothing but pure, unadulterated hard work, what is stopping you from pursuing your impossible dream today? It's never too late to start, and it's never too late to break your limits. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you on the next one.